if that's the case, then probably your address will take about 10 minutes, so you'll be joined by the time it's ready to
we are live
introduce
now.
them. Om Namah Shivaya, Parvati Pataye, Hara 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 Mahadev. Welcome everyone to this celebration and remembrance of beloved Guruji, Acharya Motilal Pandit. Today we have gathered in the first of what we hope will be many of Smriti, a memorial conference that we'll host on Mahashivratri in remembrance and honor of Acharya Motilal Pandit. He was a very diverse person, and you'll be hearing from people who represent all facets of his life. You can see here that he was very, very in love with the idea of interreligious dialogue. He wrote and thought about how ideas from throughout the Hindu sphere, from Vedanta, but especially his beloved Kashmir Shaivism, related to Buddhist thought of all sorts, to even Christian thought. He was a very, very diverse thinker. He was a family man. He was a husband, father, grandfather. He believed in and loved in his Kashmiri culture, like you can see him in the fair in here, but he brought forth a lot of the culture related to Kashmir Shaivism. And he was always an educator. From a young age onward, he loved to teach people about these ideas that mattered so much to him. And so today you'll be hearing from people who speak to all sorts of different aspects of his multidimensional personality. You'll hear from his family, you'll hear from those who've read and admired his works, and you'll hear from a number of us who were part of a very small kula where he would, week by week, take a verse and explain it to us in the very traditional way that these materials of Kashmir Shaivism should be taught. As part of that weekly kula, one of the things that he always recommended was that we start each event with a selection of verses that he picked from the Stuti Chandrika. So to welcome you and to begin the hosting, before we go on to the rest of our event with two amazing keynote addresses as well, we'll begin with the Stuti Chandrika. Just a small selection of the verses that he thought were very important for us to recite. Agad samshayam bodhi samutaranatarini vande vichitrartha padam chitram tam guru bharati sadasadanugrahani graha Grahit muni vigraho bhagavan sarvasam upanishadam durvasa jaiti daishika pratamaha trayambika vihita santati tamra parni sanmoktika prakarkanti vishesha bhaja purve jayanti guruvo guru shastra sindhu kallola keli kalanamala karnadhara Anand Sundar Purandara Mukta Maulyam Maulohatena Nihitam Mahishasarasya Padambujam Bhavatu Me Vichayaya Manju Manjir Shinjita Manoharam Ambikaya Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Punatuva Sahasra Chakshur Bhagavan Sahasrapad Kalem Gremule Nayane Chanishchala Trayopyamiyam Purusha Upasate Om Shamno Mitraha Shamvarnaha Shamno Bhavat Varyama Shamno Indro Brihaspatihi Shamno Vishnu Rurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Prataksham Brahmasi Tvameva Prataksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadbhaktaram avatu avatu mam avatu bhaktaram Om Shanti 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 Jai Gurudev. So opening us with this auspicious note on the occasion of Mahashivratri, I would like to introduce one of Guruji's closest students to give us an introductory address, and then we'll go to blessings from the family. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Abhishek Kumarji, who's who's our Guru Bhai and one of Acharya Motilal Pandit's close students. So please, Abhishek ji.
Thank you, Ravi ji. I'm just sharing my screen. So it's visible to everyone. Is it coming?
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
So welcome all of you who is on the panel and who are watching online in the first International Memorial Conference on this Mahashivratri in the remembrance of our beloved Guruji Acharya Motilal Pandit ji, Smriti 2026. Before giving you outline of this conference, I would like to invoke the Guru Parampara very briefly. Let's bow down in the lotus feet of our Guru Parampara together. Sri Somananda Nathaya Namaha, Sri Utpal Devaya Namaha, Sri Abhinavagupta Padaya Namaha, Guru Paramparabhyo Namaha. In that same current of living transmission of our lineage, we remember today our beloved Guruji, Acharya Motilal Pandit ji. First of all, why Aspand Smriti, the nomenclature? In our parampara, as Spandakarika declares, Yatra Yatra Mano Yati Tatra Tatra Samaveshaha. Whenever the mind moves, there is absorption. And Spanda is the subtle pulsation of the consciousness, the dynamic throw by which awareness reveals itself in every cognition. So, in Trika vision, Aspanda does not mean physical movement as we know, and the other part is the Smriti. So, in the Pratibhigya tradition, a Smriti is not memory of something lost. It is reflective recognition, the recognition of what has never ceased to be. Therefore, this conference, the Spanda Smriti, does not mean remembering Guruji as a figure of the past. It means attuning ourselves to the living vibration through which his teaching continues to unfold. So, we do not gather around absence, we gather in the recognition of presence. That is the Smriti. Trika, where teaching becomes realization, what we learn, our Guruji always used to say, Trika is not merely studies, it is being lived. Vimarso hi prakasasya atma. So Vimars is the very essence of the prakas, and the wisdom embodied whenever awareness not only shines, but the recognizes itself as that shining. So this teaching is lifestyle, what we learn from Gurudev. I'm just pointing out here. We are remembering Gurudev, so just what our parampara, what Mahashivratri Abhinavagupta has reasoned about the Guru. He said, like Guru Reva Parah Shiva. So Guru alone is the Param Shiva. So Guru is a Tattva. Guru is not like a person or personality. So it means Guru is the consciousness itself functioning as a grace, Anugraha. So in Trika vision, Guru does not stand outside the disciple. He is the moment when illumination becomes recognition, when Prakash turned into the Vimarsa. So Guru does not give the liberation only, he removes contraction, sankoch. He does not produce knowledge, he reveals the identity, where misrecognition resolves, where awareness turns towards itself, there the Guru has operated. So in that instance, in our parampara, Shiva recognizes Shiva. Going more, trying to understand the qualification of the Guru, as Mahashivratri pointed out, the first qualification, Swanubhava Sampannaha, established in the direct realization, not merely a scriptural bodh jnana. Second qualification, Shastra Visaradaha, deeply grounded in the Shastra, capable of precise exposition. And the third qualification is the Anugraha Sakti Sampannaha, endowed with the power of grace, the Anugraha, and able to awaken recognition in others. Fourth qualification, Ahankar Sunya, free from self-display, teaching without egotic assertion. And the fifth one, Sisya Chittabodhakaha, able to illuminate the disciple own awareness, not impose belief. So all the qualification of a Sadguru, we saw, I saw in our Guruji, Acharya Motilal Pandit ji, to whom I'm just remembering together. Our beloved Guruji stood within the living stream of the Trika Parampara, having studied under Dr. Baljinath Pandit and Sri Dinanath Yaksha, custodian of Kashmir profound Saiva heritage. From them he received not merely a scholarship, but transmission, the Sakti path, the living insight of the Prativigya, Aspand, Kaula and Krama. For academic world, to the academic world, he was a distinguished scholar, but for us, he was a doorway to the recognition. If we truly honor him, it will not be through remembrance only, but through living the clarity he embodied. So in Trika vision, Guru does not end, he continues whenever awareness awakens. Guruji, I'm just bowing down in his lotus feet again. Guruve Sivarupaye Chidanand Ghanayate Namaha Prativigya Gyan Pradaye Maham Prakas Rupine. Guruji, as a teacher, what we saw, rooted in Saiva Shastra, committed to clarity, teacher in true Trika sense, teaching as illumination, not performance, silence as instruction. Guruji, as a scholar, we saw deep engagement with the text, faithful So Guruji as a teacher, what we saw, deep engagement with the text, faithful to the tradition, resisted dilution, and author of several books and papers. A scripture and Guru, as Tantra Lok said, Na Sastram Guru Vaktaram Vina Prakasya Kuchitaha. A scripture does not shine without the mouth of the Guru. Guru does not replace a scripture, but he makes it luminous. Shastra explains, Guru awakens, where concept ends, recognition begins. And the role of Shakti path, our parampara is saying in Tantra Loka like Anugraha eva moksha karanam. So grace alone is the cause of liberation. So in Trika, liberation does not begin with the effort. It begins with the Anugraha, and that Anugraha is the Guru, the gracious turning of the consciousness towards itself. So Anugraha is intrinsic to the Chitta. The Guru is that intrinsic grace appearing relationally. Recognition does not arise through the causation, but through the removal of Sankocha. Awakening is not acquisition, it is unveiling. So Aspanda and lineage, so Guru is the Paramashiva functioning as a grace, and Aspanda is the dynamic stillness of that Shiva. When forms dissolve, Aspanda remains, and the transmission is uninterrupted, it is internalized. We choose Mahashivratri as a symbolism. We choose this auspicious day for Spanda Smriti. Ratri symbolizes as the dissolution of the contraction, when we must withdraw from the limitation, Prakash shines unobstructed. So Mahashivratri is not an event in time, it is a recognition of timeless awareness. Now this conference as the offering, in the lotus feet of Gurudev, in our parampara, Sravan Matrena Prativigya Jayate, through merely listening recognition may rise. So where ego seeks display, recognition cannot arise. Where receptibility depends, grace operates, in true listening, Aspanda felt. So this gathering is an act of collective inwardness. We stand within a wave of grace to the family for anchoring love in dignity, to the scholars for safeguarding precision, to seekers for keeping the flame alive, where Sada gathers, lineage continues. So, with this thought, I am opening this conference. Swatm Prakasa Eva Sarva Mangalam. May this gathering be an occasion for that illumination. May grace unfold in clarity and stillness. Jai Gurudev. Har Har Mahadev. Har Har Mahadev. Now over to Ravi ji.
Thank you, Abhishek ji, for opening this so beautifully and explaining what Guruji was and is, and the meaning of this conference. I believe that Guru Ma has joined.
Yes, I believe.
Okay, so Pranam Guru Ma. Please, we would love to hear any blessings, any words you have, any remembrances about Guruji.
क्या बोलो मैं बहुत अच्छे थे, बहुत अच्छे मीटिंग थे। क्या बोल सकते हैं उनके बारे में? जितना उन्होंने करा उतने बहुत कम लोग कर सकते हैं, और मैं उनके सामने कुछ नहीं हूँ, मैं कुछ बोल नहीं सकती हूँ। क्या बताऊँ, बहुत अच्छे। आप समझदार हो, आप समझ सकते हो मेरे अंदर इस क्या हो रहा है।
म्यूट हो गया माता जी का। माता जी म्यूट हो गया।
बेटा मैं उस स्थिति में नहीं, मैं इस वक्त कुछ बोलूंगी किसी टाइम, जब वो टाइम आएगा मैं बहुत कुछ बोल सकती हूँ, मगर अभी इतना मैं बोल सकती हूँ।
बहुत है गुरु माँ, प्रणाम।
दूसरा होगा वंश।
Ravi ji, you can check if other family members, if available, Amit ji or Sakshi ji can.
Amit ji, are you available to say some words?
Only Mata ji available.
Something that I always remember is when Guruji was giving his lectures, he was Bhairava. But then afterwards, he would turn into Dada or Nana, and he would always give us the same sort of, advice that a Nana would. He would say, oh, Abhishek ji or Ravi ji or Timothy ji, you're too materialistic, focus on this instead. Or he would, my favorite phrase was that he would always say, don't eat akram bakram, don't eat like out in the food marts and all that. And he would also, one of the things that he said that always stuck with me is he said to travel this path your character must be beyond reproach. That was his exact phrase. And so, as much as he, taught like a real, the Shastras in such detail, going through each verse, reciting it in Sanskrit, then going through the commentary of Chemaraja or who else wrote the commentaries. But then afterwards, it was just, a typical Desi Nana who cares about you, is a little stern, wants to give you some good life advice. And so in that way, it's Gula in the real sense. So, Guru Ma, we're also your kids in some way. I think Amitji is joining soon.
No one is letting him in actually, so he is not able to join.
One sec.
Okay. Abhishek Ji, would you let him in?
I'm checking. Now I got the request here. Yeah, he's here. Amitji is here.
Pranam Amitji. Welcome to this gathering, Spanda Smriti. If you'd be willing to say a few words about Guruji.
I'm not sure if my words could do justice to a person, but we had someone who was more than a source of inspiration for us. He was a kind man. There's not much that I can say. It's life goes this amazing journey where you traverse places unknown in search of knowledge. And he was, as a human being, as a scholar, as a father, he was always a gift to me. And I feel blessed to be born into this lineage as his son. And thank you so much. That's what I would like to share.
Thank you, Amitji. We're so grateful that the family has joined and blessed us on this occasion, the first of many that will be held in Guruji's honor, as we all do our best to continue, the scholarship, yes, but then also just the way of being that he showed us. And so having the family here means so much. We have some speakers who are very important to us, and it's our honor to have them here and to introduce them. And in order to do so, one of the things that, many of us had read Guruji's books before meeting him. And then one of the differences, though, is that when you really meet the teacher, you get these oral traditions, the stories that don't make it into the books. You get, stories of the lineage and these sorts of things. And so, in what we feel is that obviously Guruji has left his body, and many of us kind of think about our teachers or anyone that we see as sort of a node, but they're one part in a much, much bigger network. And so our Gula wasn't just one person, but there was an entire lineage. And this is a very important lineage of the Kashmir Shaiva teachings. And by way of introducing our two speakers, I want to share just a little bit, not all, because that would take forever, and be its own very rich conference, but just a little bit of the broader network of the great masters in this family, the Gula of the Shaiva teachings. So we can see here Guruji Motilal Pandit presenting one of his books, and side by side we can see Brahma Guru Baljinath Pandit presenting one of his books, and you can see the similarity And if you zoom in, it's Sri Shrivadrashti, so one of the fundamental texts. And so we know, many of us and many of the world knows about Param Guru Bhajanath Pandit because he's written some of the most important books that have given the history of Kashmir Shaivism. He's also written and revealed his own texts, like Swatantriya Darpana, for instance. But he's very well known and very well respected as one of the leading lights of Kashmir Shaivism. And it's that blend of scholarship and practice that is living in the works of Guruji as well. But what many people don't know about is Param Guru, Amritavagbhava Acharya, who, it's a name that even many people who think they know Tantra and Kashmir Shaivism, they don't know his name. But he was somebody who, in addition to having initiation and instruction from his physical gurus, he was somebody who received frequently initiation and direct instruction from Sage Durvasa himself. He was a mystic of the highest caliber. Another thing about him was that, just like Guruji, he was so interested in not just in spiritual matters, but in matters of the life and politics, and he wrote very, very widely, like Rashtraloka, for instance. He's all about the ideals of politics and the world around us. But many people don't know that he himself had these initiations into Shambhava Yoga, a very high form and subtle form of the Kashmir Shaiva meditations. But he didn't even know, because he received these straight from Sage Durvasa himself, he didn't even know that this entire tradition existed initially when he was having these experiences. It was only when Mahamopadhyaya Gopinath Kaviraj came to him and said, by the way, what you're describing in terms of the practices and in terms of the experiences you're having, Sage Durvasa released this entire series of agamas. And so it was Gopinath Kaviraj himself, the great tantric scholar of Kashi, who introduced him to these texts. And after that, seeing how well they resonated with his experience, Amritavagbhava Acharya went to Kashmir. He traveled and made pilgrimages in the early 1900s to all these areas. And there he writes about this, he met people in the living lineage of Acharya Abhinavagupta. And so he really embodied then the full transmission, not only receiving messages directly from Sage Durvasa, but then from the other lineage there. And the stories of what experiences he had in Kashmir are amazing, and we can tell them next year or in the future, like the story of how he learned Panchaspavi. It's really amazing. So here we see Amritavagbhava Acharya, Parameshti Guru, and we see Mahamopadhyaya Gopinath Kaviraj, who, without him, there would be no the culture of the tantric scholarship in Kashi would not exist. Now, everyone who knows Kashmir Shaivism knows and bows to the feet of Ishwar Swarup Swami Lakshmanju Maharaj. Something that's interesting, though, is that in one of his writings, Swami Lakshmanju himself said that there is no one who is a living representation of these lineages of Swamda, Pratibhigya, Grama, than Bhajanath Pandit. He recognized him as a master. And Swami Lakshmanju has these stories of being in some of these conferences on Shaivism and just having to scold these so-called scholars for the ways that they thought they understood Shaivism. And he would say, and the only person who sat beside me was Bhajanath Pandit. And, the two of us were just looking and saying, oh my God, what are they doing? So they were very much eye to eye. And when they met, sometimes they could just be with each other in silence because there was nothing to say. It was pure anupaya. Now, something that's not as well known is that Gopinath Kaviraj is part of the reason that Swami Lakshmanju is so well known, because Gopinath Kaviraj sponsored this All India Tantra Sammelanam in 1965, and you can see Swami Lakshmanju in the bottom left corner. And it was there that he presented one of the few texts that he actually composed himself in Sanskrit, which is the Kundalini Vijnana Rahasya, which is one of the most beautiful expositions of the nature of Kundalini, based off of largely a single verse or two from the Tantra Loka. And it's one of the most profound texts. And so after Swami Lakshmanju presented this text, people came to know that, wow, the lineage is still alive in Kashmir, and it's embodied in this one great soul. Swami Lakshmanju therefore represents, so one thing that's very interesting, and we can't go into all the areas, but, Jaydev Singh, Thakur Jaydev Singh, who wrote these many books that so many of us have read. He did the translations into English of the Shiva Sutras. So many of the Bhartrashika Vivarna was the final one that he did. So many of these books that have introduced us to the tradition. He was a student of both Swami Lakshmanju and Mahamotpadhyaya Gopinath Kaviraj. So just exploring some of the interactions and intersections. Swami Lakshmanju himself represents a very important lineage from Kashmir itself. Now, his Param Guru is Swami Ramji. And without Swami Ramji, again, many of us would never know that Kashmir Shaiva text existed, because it was through Swami Ramji that the king of Kashmir was inspired to create this Kashmir series of texts and studies. And over very, very, very many volumes, it released all the key texts of the Kashmir Shaiva tradition. And you can see here the 1918 version with volume 1 of Acharya Abhinavagupta's Tantraloka. So they gathered the existing manuscripts that the Kashmiri Pandits had preserved in, on the small, like if you've seen them, the small books that they've kept and preserved, and they gathered as many of these manuscripts as possible, and then they created critical editions and published them and sent them out to the world. And that's how so many of us have access to these texts, is through the grace of Swami Ramji, because he knew not only that Swami Lakshmanju would come, and that he wanted these texts to be available for Swami Lakshmanju, so that Swami Lakshmanju could make them available to the world, but he knew that there would be this renaissance of Kashmir Shaivism. And so it was Swami Ramji who laid the groundwork for all of this, all of what we're doing today. You can see Swami Lakshmanju here with his guru, Swami Mehtab Kak, and Swami Mehtab Kak with his guru, Swami Lakshmanju's Param Guru, Swami Ramji. Now, this is something that very, very few people know, is that how did Gopinath Kaviraj come to a deeper understanding of Kashmir Shaivism? His own stories and his own guru is a very fascinating tale, the lineage of Gyanganj. But what's not as well known is that it was Swami Shankara Chaitanya Bharati, who was a Kashmiri who moved to Kashi at a very young age. And when he was there, he wrote the Sharada commentary on one of the most esoteric of texts that's ever been written within the Advaita Vedanta world, the Khandana Khanda Kadya, at the age of, I think, like 19. But it was him who really went through and worked with Pandit Gopinath Kaviraj on all these texts to teach him. So we can see here that there's this flow of information and translation. His disciple was Swami Shiva Shankara Chaitanya Bharati. And although these were Swamis of the Shankara lineage, you'd be surprised to know that they held some of the most esoteric of the practices of Sri Vidya. They have a long exegetical tradition of all the texts of Abhinavagupta and the teachings of Kashmir Shaivism. So they had this amazing lineage in Kashi. And you can see here the intersections deepen. Because when Swami Mehtab Kak and Swami Lakshmanju would come to Kashi, Swami Mehtab Kak knew Shiv Shankara Chaitanya Bharati. And Swami Lakshmanju, at that age, he was known as Brahmachari Lakshman. But they would meet, and Swami Lakshmanju would call him Guru. So it was known that this lineage, also coming from Kashi, and originally from Kashmir and then into Kashi, was still alive, and that there were these resonances. And so you can see here Swami Shankara Chaitanya Bharati and Swami Shiv Shankara Chaitanya Bharati. I think the photo was taken at his 103rd year of age. And Swami Shankara Chaitanya Bharati, when he left his body, it was a miraculous event in the sense that people who were in the room, and I've heard that Mahamotpadhyaya Gopinath Kaviraj was in the room, you could hear the anahata sound as he was leaving through this hasraj. So he was that sort of advanced yogi, that this is the greatness of the lineages. So why then is it so nice to see this complex mapping of all these lineages in Kashi, in Kashmir, all coming together? Well, because it reminds us that it's not a node, there's a network. That although, we have received the grace from Guruji Motilal Pandit, that we have Guru Bhais of his. So Jeffrey Lidke, who's going to be one of our keynote speakers, is also somebody who had studied for quite some time with Baljinath Pandit. So in that way, he can tell us some stories and some background about our lineage. And this is a photo of Jeffrey, I understand, studying with Baljinath Pandit. Now, one of the interesting stories is that after studying in Kashi for quite some time, he was very interested in Sri Vidya, that, this greatest of systems, of tantric systems. And Param Guru Baljinath Pandit said, I understand you're going to Nepal. I'm skeptical that there's anyone anywhere who could ever unravel all the mysteries of Sri Vidya, because it's such an esoteric system and it's so complex. But if there's anyone who can, and you're in Nepal, there's this young practitioner who's, sort of like a prodigy, and he's a scholar and he's a practitioner, and his name is Thaneshwar. So Baljinath Pandit sent Jeffrey to Nepal to learn from Acharya Motilal. And you can see him here in that time in 1997 doing his sadhana in Nepal. So, interestingly enough, our second speaker is Acharya Motilal. And if you wonder where he learned this exegetical tradition and the practice of Sri Vidya and these Amnaya practices, these classical practices, he is himself a direct student of Swami Shiva Shankar Chaitanya Bharati, from whom he received these. And then furthermore, Pandit Gopinath Kaviraj, who was involved in so much things, had two of his key students, Mendranath Chakravarti and Rajwala Dwivedi, who also were the gurus of Acharya Motilal. So we can see now that our Guruji is one node in this broader network. And this is just the 20th century, mapping some of the relationships between all these people. And so we can see that so many of the great yogis, the great masters, are living today and are with us today. And so all of us who've received teachings in these streams, we embody this entire history. And it's in this way that all the living lineages of our Kashmir Shaivism support each other and love each other. And that's why it's so important that we have Professor Lidke and Acharya Motilal here for us, because they are part of our family, our kula. And we can move this between noticing just nodes, just Swamiji, just Guruji, and seeing this whole network that's embodied for us. So I am so honored to be introducing our first speaker, who's Professor Jeffrey Lidke, who's a professor of religious studies at Berry College. And then afterwards we'll be introducing our second keynote speaker, which is Acharya Dr. Thaneshwar Motilal, who's a endowed chair at Stony Brook University and a classically trained with all the Adhikara Acharya in the Sarva Amnaya lineage. So I hope this has been a presentation that shows the greatness of the Parampara, the way that all these teachings come together. And without further ado, Professor Lidke, if you'd like to give our first address, we'd be so happy to have you.
Namaskaromi, everyone. Thank you, Ravi Ji. That was truly a beautiful introduction. It was wonderful to see those photos from such a beautiful time. I feel so very blessed to have met Baljinath Pandit and for him to have introduced me to my teacher, Thaneshwar Motilal. And I'm honored that he too is present. Namaste, Guruji. As we gather on the auspicious occasion of Mahashivratri, a night dedicated to the recognition of the inner light of Shiva, it feels especially meaningful to honor and remember the great Motilal Pandit and his own beloved Guru, Dr. Baljinath Pandit. with whom I was so fortunate to study as a graduate student in 1996. And to open our hearts to the spirit of this night, I invoke the great liberating mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. It was on the occasion of Mahashivratri, when I was 16 years old, that I first received Shaktipata. And so I honor this day together with all of you. The beloved and brilliant Motilal Pandit, who passed away just recently, leaves behind a luminous legacy within the field of Kashmir Shaivism and Indian philosophical studies more broadly. As a devoted student of the esteemed Balajinath Pandit, he carried forward a lineage of profound intellectual rigor and spiritual insight. His scholarship was marked by a rare combination of textual mastery, contemplative depth, and a lifelong commitment to making the subtle intricacies of non-dual Shaiva thought accessible to a global readership. Across his long and distinguished career, Pandit emerged as one of the foremost interpreters of the Pratyabhijna tradition. His book Transcendence and Negation, a study of Kashmir Shaivism, stands as a seminal contribution, offering a lucid account of the metaphysics and soteriology that define the tradition's distinctive non-dualism. Likewise, the Disclosure of Being exemplifies his capacity to weave together philological precision with philosophical clarity, illuminating the inner architecture of consciousness as envisioned by Abhinavagupta and his predecessors. Through these works and many others, Motilal Pandit demonstrated an unwavering dedication to both scholarship and the spiritual vision that animated it. And beyond his publications, Motilal will be remembered for his gracious humility and quiet strength with which he approached the life of the mind. He embodied the ideal of the scholar practitioner, one who not only analyzed the tradition but lived its central insight, which is the recognition of the divine in every moment of awareness. His passing marks the end of an era, but his voice remains through the texts he offered to the world and through the countless students and readers whose understanding he helped shape. May his work continue to inspire sincere inquiry, and may his memory be a blessing to all who walk the path he illuminated. While I was not myself blessed to meet Motilal personally, and only through his writings, I was truly fortunate to study with his guru, the late great Balajinath Pandit. His scholarship illuminated precisely the non-dual vision celebrated on this auspicious occasion of Mahashivratri. The understanding that Shiva is not a distinct deity, but the very essence of our own consciousness. I'm honored to share about this remarkable scholar of Kashmir Shaivism and about my own experience studying with him at the City Yoga Ashram in 1996. And I was a part of a program, the first fellowship offered by the Mukta Bodha Indological Research Center. And I was there with my wife and our newborn child, Surita Mishra, as well as Marcy Braverman and John Nemec. I'm sure many of you know about the life of Dr. Balajinath Pandit. He was born in 1916 in Kulgam in Kashmir's Anantnag district. He showed exceptional intelligence from an early age. He completed a rigorous traditional Sanskrit education at Sri Raghunath Sanskrit College, earning degrees such as Prajna, Visharada, and Shastri. He excelled in higher studies as well, topping the University of Punjab in Lahore, and later earning his MA and PhD in Sanskrit. And he trained under several eminent Kashmiri Pandits, none greater than the great Amrita Vagbhav Acharya of Varanasi, whom Ravi Ji mentioned. And Pandit Ji, every day we would meet with him, and he would teach us great texts, like the Ishvara Pratyabhijna Karika. And on many occasions, he would sit together with us and reflect on his love for Amrita Vagbhava, and his heart would fill with such sweet rasa as he recounted those experiences. And so, as Ravi Ji said, we are all blessed to be a part of this great lineage, a lineage that helps each of us connect back to that divine spanda essence, which is the source of creation and also is our own deepest vibrating heart. Dr. Balajinath Pandit's career spanned several major institutions. He began at the Government Oriental College in Srinagar, where he revitalized Sanskrit education with innovative methods, including spoken Sanskrit and debate. And he later became lecturer of Sri Pratap College, serving in Anantnag, and ultimately became professor of Sanskrit and philosophy at Himachal Pradesh University. He was also a part of the Mukta Bodha Indological Research Institute's Academic Council and was honored by the President of India for his contributions to Indology. For over 30 years, he directed the creation of the Kashmir Shaiva Darshana Brihat Kosha, a monumental encyclopedia of Kashmir Shaivism. On a night like this, on Shivaratri, devoted to both devotion, bhakti, and insight, jnana, Pandit Ji's life reminds us that scholarship, too, is a sacred offering and a means to liberation. As Pandit Ji often expressed to me during class, Maheshwaraya Namaha, solutions to the great Lord, the source of wisdom. Statements like these reflected his deep devotion to Lord Shiva, not just as an object of study, but as that by which, when known, one becomes liberated while living. Jaya Shiva Shambho. Pandit Ji loved this verse from the Shivananda Lahari. Bhava Bhanda Chede Ratir, Asi Bhavani Tvaya Mama, Matakim Te Nata Pranati Bir, Anyanyascha Tapajana. O my Lord, my heart delights in you, who cuts the bonds of worldly existence. What more could you desire from me than unwavering devotion and surrender? He would also recite this verse from the Shiva Purana. Namo Namaha Shivaya Shantaya Paramatmane Namo Bhakta Priyayaiva Namaha Shankara Harine. Salutations again and again to Shiva, the peaceful one, the supreme self. Salutation to the beloved of devotees, the Shankara, who removes all sorrow. Dr. Pandit was widely regarded as one of the last living traditional Kashmir Shaiva masters, as Ravi noted. His works include aspects of Kashmir Shaivism, history of Kashmir Shaivism, Paramartha Sara of Abhinavagupta, his classic Swatantriya Darpana, the mirror of self-supremacy, specific principles of Kashmir Shaivism, the Ishwara Pratyabhijna Karika Utpaladeva, verses of the recognition of the Lord, which I was fortunate to help edit. And his scholarship emphasized the heart of Kashmir Shaivism, the idea of Paramashiva as absolute non-dual consciousness, and Shiva and Shakti as two aspects of one reality whose vibrant union brings all being into creation through the unfolding of the tattvas. A unity that's beautifully expressed in the verse Chittam Sarvam Shiva Surupam. All that appears in consciousness is the very form of Shiva. When I studied with Dr. Balajinath Pandit at the Siddhi Yoga Ashram in New Delhi in 1996, I encountered not just a scholar, but a living embodiment of the Shiva insight we celebrate on this occasion, that the divine is intimately present in our own awareness. Every day that we study together, we would also sit in meditation. And those moments of meditation, there was always this feeling in his presence, this incredible vibration, this energy, this spanda that radiated around him and enabled meditation to move us into a very deep place. And I remember one day as we came out of meditation, he was just gazing at me and he said to me, "Please promise that you will never forget these experiences and you will never forget these teachings that I have shared with you. This is my life's work, and I feel so very grateful that you are interested in receiving it and carrying it on." Dr. Pandit could take a text like a text from Abhinavagupta or Utpaladeva or other great Kashmiri masters and reveal that its own deepest essence was the essence of each one of our own heart. He taught us that Shiva is not a concept, but the light of consciousness shining in every moment. I remember how quietly he spoke, yet how profoundly his words resonated. It was as though he were guiding us to recognize what Trika philosophy calls Pratibhijna, the recognition of the self as Shiva. And after many classes, he exhorted us to recite the mantra, Shivoham Shivaha, Shivoham, I am Shiva. Nirvanam Jnanam Maheshasya, the knowledge of Shiva, Mahesha, is liberation. Of all my memories of Panditji, none is greater than the one in which he was holding my daughter, Sarita Mary Lidki, who at that time was only 6 months, and she reached out and said her first word, Baba. Dr. Pandit passed away on September 7th, 2007, closing a chapter in the lineage of traditional Kashmir Shaivism, not before passing on his legacy to the great Motilal Panditji. His legacy continues to live on through the global study of Shaiva philosophy, in his influential books, and in the hearts of those who studied with him. On this Shivaratri night, when tradition invites us to remain awake to our deepest nature, his teachings are a reminder that awakening is possible, accessible, and already present within. As the great Abhinavagupta proclaims in the Tantra Loka, Chittasyaiva Chidatmata Mokshaha. Liberation is the recognition that the mind is consciousness itself. So on this occasion, may the lives and works of both Balaji Nath and Motilal Pandit inspire us to honor both scholarship and inner experience, both study and spiritual recognition. Their work brings us closer to the truth celebrated tonight, that Shiva dwells as the luminous heart of our own being. I end with a beloved verse from the Shiva Mahimna Stotram. Atita Pamtanam Tavacha Mahima Van Manasayo Atadvyavrityayam Chakitam Abhitate Shrutirapi Sakasya Stotavya Gati Vidha Guna Kasya Vishaya Pade Tvarvachide Patati Namana Kasya Navacha.
Thank you so much, Professor Lidke, for sharing these beautiful remembrances of Param Guru, and for the these stories. Just they mean so much, and they bring so much joy to the heart. Wow,
Thank
Baba,
you.
her first words, that's so adorable. Yeah, it's just such an honor to have you with us and for you to share your history, which is also our history, because you're teaching us about our Param Guru. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so meaningful. Our second keynote address is Acharya Motilal, who will be speaking to us as well. He is, again, the Nirmal and Augustina Muttu Endowed Chair in the Classic Indic Humanities at Stony Brook University, and he is also an Acharya in the Sarva Amnaya lineage, and so he'll be speaking to us. Pranam Acharyaji, thank you so much for joining us.
Namaskara, thank you. What an honor to be here among you all, a family. In this commemoration, we people reflecting on Pratyavijna, memory for us means something more than a mere commemoration, because the entire philosophy rests on memory. And one thing very important in the philosophy of Pratyavijna is when the content is lost, the experience is not. For the anubhuti, the experience is the very self that endures through time. Of course, we strive for keeping the contents alive. But what resonates in our heart, even when the content is as if absent, is the experiences that have woven us, made our being, and given us this ahanta, I am. So my ahanta, my I am, is not just some core that is separated from the memories of Pandit Balsinathji or Motilal Pandit. One name we don't know how to or where to fit is Khaptar Baba. I just wanted to throw additional name because I don't know where he fits in this whole thing. Khaptar Baba is lovingly called in Nepal as Khaptar Baba. I don't know what his real name was. He was from Jammu, I know, and he was a medical doctor, and early on in his 20s he left practice and walked directly to the Himalayas of Khaptar in Nepal and sat in a cave in 17,000 feet. I don't know how that is possible. It's not some stories of 1,000 years. There are hundreds of thousands of people who studied under Khaptar Baba who are alive today. So and he has left behind 6-7 books for us. So Khaptar Baba meditated in the lakes of the mountains of Khaptar for more than 40 years straight. And he was found actually by the King's General in Nepal when they were patrolling the immigrants coming from Tibet in the high Himalayas. And the day he was discovered, actually the pilot was so shocked, he came to my Diksha Guruji, Prem Chetanji, and Guruji said, yes, he's meditating there, just go and tell the king, his time has come now. And then king graciously went next day to Khaptar because he understood the gravity. So the king went and begged Khaptar Baba to come and teach to the public for 6 months in the winter when it's completely covered with snow. And for like about a decade, I was fortunate to have his experience. He brought significant amount of Kashmiri lineage within himself that I know from his teachings. Deeply ingrained with Vedanta and Patanjali's yoga, and some Buddhist philosophy also. Coming to the lineage of particular B.N. Panditji and Motilalji, they loved me. I know why, I don't know why. Everybody, I'm a very shy person actually when it comes to reaching out to people. I am trained only in two things. Shankar Chaitanya Bharati taught me how to combat in debates. Yeah, he was sadhaka, all right, but he trained me in Nyaya. So my job was to take down others' position. And I met them with whom I had to disagree, generally. And there was no disagreement with Panditji, they loved me. And that was done. And then Guruji, other Gurus taught me more on sadhana. But once or twice when we had an exchange through social media, I could feel their grace. And sometimes the echo I could feel in their voice, in their eyes, the echo of what I felt in 1990 when I was leaving Varanasi. When I went to Varanasi, empty-handed and slept in the street. That's how I started my life in different occasions. Pandit Brajbal Dwivedi taught me every day except for Ashtami and Pratipad. And after 4 years, when I was leaving Kashi, I didn't know what to say because in our tradition we offer Guru Dakshina. When you are, when you have studied and you are going away, I have nothing that would anyway reflect the amount of grace the Guruji had bestowed upon me. All I could do was just fall down and cry on his feet, Guruji, I have nothing to give to you. And Guruji, when he lifted me up, he was 78 years old, if I remember correctly. He had tears in both his eyes. When he says, काशी से पांडित्य परंपरा लोप हो रहा है, इसकी रक्षा करो तो गुरु दक्षिणा. So the lineage of Pandits is vanishing from Kashi. For Guru Dakshina, you have to preserve it. So I was so young and full of confidence. I thought, I could do a lot. I started a department for Tantric studies in Nepal, but there is this big tide of society. We Pandits have not been very reflective of the social, environment and how to survive. Either we joined the politics and erased our originality, or remained totally outside of it and then got crossed. So I couldn't fight there too much, and in this running and self-discovering, my whole life has been a process of repeated self-discovery. So this repeated self-discovery is not a new phenomenon for me, because my family's heritage starts from Srinagar, not the Kashmir Srinagar, but Uttarakhand Srinagar. I don't know what they were before that. There is a Barfila Baba, if you guys have heard, there's a mountain in which it's called Sheken Amarnath. That's called Timal Sen Mahadev, but Timar nowadays they call Timar Sen. That's where we get Timal Sen. That's my original place, and you can almost trace from there to Kathmandu, wherever every 100, 200 years my family has moved. You can locate from Shiva temples there, and So the gravity comes down to us dispersed globally and lost culturally in a great extent, but nonetheless still eager to self-discover. So Trika Darsana is not something that can ever vanish, because it's the conclusion of our logical thinking. So whenever rationality prevails, we go. Like right now I'm teaching a course, Memory and the Self. The idea is to teach Pratyavijna to graduate students in America in a very modern Western setting. And they have introduced some Rilkean memory, a new concept in philosophy. And ultimately the idea is how, even in the absence of content, the act as such remains. This very notion of the act is what makes Trika Darsana so poignant, that it's not a passive, mirror-like consciousness of Advaita Vedanta. It's an active consciousness. It is dynamic consciousness. It has that spontaneity, spanda, and that is, while being this spandayamana, vibrating, pulsating, it's not conditioned by space or time, because all the other philosophers, Hindus and Buddhists alike, viewed the dynamism under the domain of space and time. And Trika Saiva's viewed Spanda as the intrinsic being, or the essence, the core of what constitutes Shiva as Shiva. And that is what projects itself in the way we understand space and time. So space and time do not condition spontaneity. On the contrary, it is the spontaneity that makes time and space possible. So Advasatkam Bhati Chidatmani, meaning in that very pure essential consciousness, the sixfold path, the time and space, like in the phonemes, the mantras, the language, and the meaning, the reference, or the realms, or tattvas, categories, all these come into play. What comes down to us, I can, enjoy talking for some time, but what comes down to us is not about let's understand Panditji today through me. You do not. I mean, each of you here knew Panditji a little bit more than I did. So then let's finish, understanding Pratyavijna. It's a lifelong process. And also we have discussed, addressed in so many ways. I think the imperative of these occasions in a very intricate way of gathering is to give our agency, to reaffirm our agency, a moral obligation handed down to us to keep these traditions alive. These are not just some thoughts for some philosophers in Columbia or Harvard to occasionally, have a footnote on, or, over the whiskey to discuss. These are experiences of the great sages that contain the pristineness of the Absolute, that carries the purity of Mount Kailas itself, and that breathes through the Shakta practices of Kaligula Krama and Trika deities. And we cannot, I believe, we cannot separate this philosophy from its esotericism. I have remained, like my friends Lidki and Ravi I met later, very reluctant to, discuss many of the sadhana aspects, because traditionally we are trained to keep these practices within ourselves. But At one point, I had to see that, I had to realize that the old style Gurukula with some young kids and training them through Brahmacharya and all, that's happening in different places, and that's not always giving the intended result either. So we need to, I think, be open-minded to explore how to preserve both the philosophies as well as the sadhana. You have discussed extensively on philosophies. Panditjis have revealed substantially on philosophies. What has remained little more esoteric, even in the teachings of Swami Lakshmanju, is the Shakta heart, the very sadhana. The very sadhanas of the Trika deities, the very sadhanas of Kalikula Krama, and the very sadhana of Swachanda Bhairava, among others. We have recently, I must also commemorate Mark Diskowski in this occasion, a Bhairava himself in many ways, who gave so much of time of his life to study these traditions and eventually adopt these as his own. And in both Alexis Sanderson and Diskowski, we see a tendency that the amount of study they did in Kashmir or Kashmiri lineage, they gave more or same amount of time to study in Nepal through Nepalese National Archives and reading through the manuscripts, and then also from the living lineage of the different pandits there. For till like 10th or 11th century, when we see Kashmiri Kula Kamacharya, like the manuals of the Kashmiri pandits, we find the centrality of Siddhi Lakshmi. Today I ask people, what is about your Kula Devata? All these things have changed, and things can change. I have no objection to that. But it is forgotten. For some reason, Nepal Valley, Kathmandu, preserved 3 temples of Siddhi Lakshmi and many more, some over 99 variations of mantras and visualizations. When it comes to Kalikula Krama, Abhinava Gupta gave this amazing philosophy in 4th chapter of Tantra Loka, and also he has a Krama Stotra, not the original Krama Stotra. Abhinava Gupta has his own Krama Stotra and also extensively cited the Krama Stotra. This is from the Anakhya Chakra. He does mention that, in the 4th chapter. And he does also mention that there are 5 chakras, the wheels of Kali, Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara, Anakhya, and Bhasa chakras. He only revealed one of the 5 wheels. Just recently, Pongset edited the manual from Vimala Prabodha of the 5 wheels of Kalikula Krama, the ritual worship that is very much preserved in Nepal. And the 4th, or the Anakhya Chakra, is exactly the way Abhinav Gupta has cited in his Tantra Loka. As it comes to Trika deities, in so many different ways, either integrating within Sri Vidya or within the Kupchika Krama and or separately, Trika tradition has also survived in so many different ways. In Sri Vidya Parampara, while most likely not originally Kashmiri, is at least evidently reached before the time of Jayaratha, because Jayaratha has given a substantial commentary on the Bhamekashwari Matha. And all the commentators afterward, Shivananda, Vidyananda, give essential philosophy of Shaktism guided by the writings of Abhinav Gupta. So, of course, Sri Vidya became integral to Kashmiri tradition from early on. I do not know what early, but since early times. So in Nepal, just like recently, I mentioned this Kauski because he discovered these 12 Kali shrines in Kerala a year or two before he passed away. The same way, all these different Kali shrines in Nepal are yet to be identified, but many of them are clearly evident. Mahachanda Yogeshwari Guhya Kali, another name, some temples are given. Bhadrakali, Rakta Kali, Srishti Kali, these are with their own Sukali, these are clearly within the same name, but there are some others that need to be deciphered. And interestingly, they also preserved some 70 different temples of Bhairava. Bhairavanath is so crucial for Kashmiri Parampara, we know that. And they preserved this. And interestingly, the main book, Swachanda Tantra, is titled Swachanda Lalita Bhairava, and hundreds of manuscripts from very early time are found in Nepal. So, unlike today, what many people imagine is so ghettoized and never communicating among each others, and completely like Bengal is like one island, and Kashmir another island, or Kerala completely separate island. These never were islands, and what was the connecting fabric of these different language groups, different ethnicities, different cultural groups? What was the fabric to connect them all is which above the nations? Pandits. Pandits never tied themselves to the nations. Not that we didn't care for nation things, but our quest was transnational. The truth was not conditioned by the king. Brahma and Kshatriya are two separate powers. Kshatriya could not dominate the Brahmins. When we allowed the Kshatriya to dominate the Brahmins, the truth, the absolute, that transcendent time and space, the locality, the king's dominance, then we lost the pristineness of the thoughts. Or otherwise, all the ideas flew from Kashmir to Kerala to Maharashtra. We know in the Maharashtra Prakrit we have this Maheshwarananda. So Shitikanta has another text. Like these teachings spread all over India, and today our responsibility lies beyond India. We are a single globe, where if we want to preserve one idea in one place, we have to preserve it everywhere. Either it survives everywhere or survives nowhere. Many people still believe, when I go to Nepal, I get little frustrated. Many people still believe that as long as the firstborn male child of the family is willing to receive a mantra, then the tradition is kept alive. I really do not think that this is a winning strategy. I think that we need more openness from within the lineage and the lineage holders. And I think there are many deserving people throughout the globe who love these things unconditionally, maybe even more than we do. Because sometimes we get at least some identity, some credit. Many people who come to these lineages are not looking for anything in return. They simply want to understand, they simply want to practice, they simply want to experience these things. And we need to build an institution. These Pandits, B.N. Panditji, Motilalji, if we do not have a proper institution, how long in a personal setting we can commemorate them? Because to commemorate them is to commemorate their ideas, the thoughts they did not give up, the thoughts they lived for, the ideas they kept alive, the ideas that resonates today globally because of them. and I believe that we owe it to them to keep these ideas alive in whatever the way we can, and for that I am here at your disposal in any way you deem necessary. Because after working in America, after being professor, I never went to English school for even one day. That's just I like to keep telling, because many of my students think it's not possible. But Gurukula gives you more education than you need in academia. But what can I give back to the Gurukula that has given me everything I asked for and little more? Today I will have Shivaratri Shala today, because a lot of people didn't come. It's a Shivaratri day, so I was expecting a little more attendance, but none of my students showed up. Everybody running into Shivaratri celebration. But I will have beautiful Shivaratri thanks to my Kashmiri families in Long Island. So I don't know why people adopt me. I'm not that likable. I think, but it's just like I find all these people, hey, come over, and then hundreds of people are there, and I'm like, no, it's Lord Shiva. He just is amazing. So again, the same thing goes to you, that each of you have, how no matter how sometimes difficult pandits can be, their heart, as long as true to the tradition. You have to consider them good pandits, because are they working to keep the lineage alive, and are they teaching the ways their gurus taught them, and that is, I think, what matters the most. And coming back to you, I've been trying this Vimarsa thing mostly, single endeavor. I know that many friends like Ravi, Jeffrey, you have helped, and I know Shankar, you have helped too. But I believe the time has to come one day that we need to think deeply beyond these satellite platforms, online platforms. We see the Advaita Vedanta or Buddhist philosophies or Vaishnava philosophies, God knows whatever the ideas. Anything they have little bhandara, the ideas survive, unfortunately. And without any institution, we cannot keep the ideas alive. It's a sad joke of humanity. Ideas cannot survive on their own just by being good. Ideas need good people to keep them alive. And these are great philosophies, not just great philosophies. These are the ultimate teachings that humanity can ever discover. That's it. There is nothing beyond that we can contemplate upon. But even these ideas need human agency if we want to keep these ideas floating among us. And that is an collective endeavor. An individual cannot accomplish much. And for that, we all need to work together so that the memory of Pandits like Motilal ji or Bian ji would be fully celebrated. And thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Acharya ji, for sharing those words. And thank you so much. Jeffrey Litke was kind enough to share this photo of our Guru, Baljinath Pandit, with his daughter. And so what we've gotten from both our speakers is a sense of the humanity behind these teachings, that they're not just books, they're not just texts, they're not just ideas, but they live on. And like Acharya Demosina pointed out, that they can't, if there's just survive anywhere, they must survive everywhere. And that the best dakshina that we can give our gurus is to live them and to work within not just the network that I mapped out, but a much broader network that, like Acharya ji mentioned, that, Mark Dyczkowski ji found these Grama teachings alive in terms of even the ritual of it and the mantras of it in Kerala. And we've heard so much about what has survived in Nepal. And, today, as we'll hear from the students, there's students all around the world who gathered together hearing from Guruji Motilal Pandit. So this is, I guess, our charge, is for all of us to love these teachings and to live these teachings, to work together across all our boundaries and to find a way to keep the flame of sadhana and of the Shastras alive. And that is the Guru Dakshina that we can give. So, as I mentioned, many of us first learned of Guruji through his books, and I looked and, I even have a copy of it. The first book that he published on Shaivism was published in 1987. I was 1 year old when he published it. And so I read it and I think, wow, just the wisdom that he had, it's really something. And many of us first encountered him through these books, where as you read them, it just felt like somebody was answering these questions that you've always had, and it took all these complicated, if you try to read Tantra-loka itself, there's so much complexity, but he was able to distill it down for us in the books. But then, every week, there was a very small gula, maybe on a very big, busy day, maybe there would be 10 people or so. But sometimes it was just a core group of maybe 15 people. But sometimes it was just a very core group of his students who he would be there with, teaching us week after week. And so it's the closing of this is to hear reflections from both those of us who had admired him through his writings, which is how we reached so many people, and then also some of the students who were there who got a chance to hear from him week after week as he unfolded these agamas for us. So we have 4 of speakers. Dr. Jyoti Arora will be our first, and then after her you can all just unmute and join in. And then the next 3 are all people who were part of the Kula and heard directly from Guruji. So without further ado, I would like Dr. Jyoti, if you would be willing to say a few words about your appreciation and what you've learned from reading the writings of Guruji.
So I will be presenting a short presentation. So I will be sharing with you. Just a minute. I think it's screen here. So can you see this slide? Is it visible?
Cannot see the slide, but it can see your screen where the Google Meet is open.
Okay. Just a minute.
One funny story as Dr. Jyoti gets this up, I remember one time Guruji had seen that I had posted something about the Vimarsha Foundation. And I remember how happy he was to see that all of us were studying very broadly. He wanted us to be very well studied. And so I remember in the beginning of one class he says, very good teacher from Vimarsha. He's Nepali. And he was so excited about just that this stuff is in Nepal too. So, this is just our bringing back and our strengthening of these traditions is worldwide. So this is a very, very good thing.
It was before. Go again. Share again.
Yeah. Please go again. I think you got it.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Just a moment. So, a very good evening to all of you. It's my pleasure to be a part of this first international memorial conference organized on Mahashivratri in remembrance of Gurudev Acharya Motilal Pandit. And it's my privilege that I have met him in person, and it was a divine experience. And I know him a lot through his writings, basically. So today I am presenting a short presentation on Acharya Abhinav Gupta, the luminous heart of Sikh Shaivism. So let's start with the invocation. Abhinav Rupa Shakti Tadgupto Yo Maheshwara Devaha Tadubhayamal Rupam Abhinav Guptam Shivam Vande. So, who was Acharya Abhinav Gupta? He was the principal exponent of non-dual Kashmir Shaivism, born during 10th century in Kashmir. A pivotal intellectual figure in Indian philosophy, tantra and aesthetics, and a commentator on Utpal Dev's Ishwar Pratibhikya Vimarshini, author of Tantra Loka and Abhinav Bharati, that is the commentary on Natya Shastra. So his life was marked by profound spiritual journey, during which he studied with multiple teachers and developed a philosophical and religious traditions. So the diverse teachings that he got, like Lakshman Gupta ji, he taught him the philosophical clarity of Pratibhikya, and Shambhunath ji gave him the experiential depth of call. Bhutiraj gave the contemplative dynamism of Kram. And all these traditions, Abhinav Gupta has converged into a single luminous synthesis of Sikh Shaivism. He was a great polymath, and he was fluent in various disciplines, including even music, poetry, and drama. And more than 36 works is there to his credit. But his masterpiece is always Tantra Loka, that has 37 ahankars and present a systematic exposition of Shaiva Tantra. In addition, detailed philosophical commentary on Utpal Dev was presented in Ishwar Pratibhikya Vimarshini, and Ratrisika Vivarana provide advanced call hermeneutics, and landmark commentary on dramaturgy and rasa theory is presented in Abhinav Bharati. So as a beginner, as a person who's a learner, I consider Prakash Vimarsh as a core doctrine of his, and Prakash is a pure illumination, and Vimarsh is a reflexive self-apprehension, self-awareness. So the unity is the absolute, and this self-reflective luminosity is the Shiva. So Pratibhikya, that is recognition. So as per Abhinav Gupta, bondage is not a real limitation. It is an erroneous identification, and liberation is not a new state. If you remove this error, then the liberation is there. So nothing is added, nothing is created, only recognition dawns. So Spanda, Prakash shining, Vimarsh stirring. The absolute expressing itself without division. You can't divide them. So wherever awareness moves, there Spanda operates. Aesthetics and spirituality, or rasa and recognition. So aesthetic experience remove personal appropriation, and emotion become impersonal then, but yet it is intensely present. And that universalization mirrors Pratibhagya. So then art becomes a rehearsal for liberation. So why Vinna Group matters so much to us in the present context? Because he is the one who transforms scattered traditions into a luminous synthesis. He safeguards precision while preserving experiential depth. And through him, Trika become internally coherent. Through him, it remains intelligible today. But at the peak of his spiritual ecstasy, one day he left for Bhairav Gufa along with 1200 disciples reciting the Bhairav Sutra as was never seen again. So that's the last scene of his earthly existence. In the end, I express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Abhishek Kumar for giving me this opportunity and always for being my mentor and guide in this field of Sikh Shaivism. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jyoti. It's so helpful that you reminded us of the source of all these teachings. That so much of what we do in practice is rooted in the thinking of Acharya Abhinavagupta and the way that he synthesized the teachings of all his masters. And sometimes Guruji would just give advice or say things, and you would later find them in the Tantra Loka or some of these texts. So he really was carrying these teachings forward in such an important way. So thank you so much for this presentation. Next, Shankarji, I'd love to hear from you. We can just have you unmute and then share your thoughts, please.
Shri Gurudev Namaha, are you able to see the screen?
We see the screen with your Google Chrome with the meeting, not your PowerPoint presentation. We see the Vimarsh of our own meeting, not the Prakash of your teachings.
Is it coming now?
Yes.
Om Namah Shivaya. So it is a great honor to even participate in such a enlightened satsang where we are honoring our beloved Acharya Acharya Motilal Pandit on a very sacred day, Mahashivratri. So I think there could not be a more greater auspicious to this event where he lived and he breathed till this last on Shaivism, so Shiva versus me. And I think honoring him is the best way. The best way to honor him is to do brainstorming on him and his teachings. I think I should thank everyone, including Acharya Staneshwarji, and for gracing this occasion and giving us his thoughts. So, to be very honest, I am just a humble seeker, just taking baby steps in devotion. So, in the entire spirituality and the Kashmir Shaivism or the Trika Shaivism or Paradvaita Shaivism or whatever we is one of my favorite disciplines where I would like to learn. Unfortunately, because of the space-time and geographical differences, I am based out of South India, from Tamil Nadu, so I don't have direct access of revered acharyas of these kulas, and so the traditional learning of the Trika, for some reason I was not very blessed with that. But thanks to internet and thanks to the text society, so I was introduced to Kashmir Saivism through the writings of Pandit Jaidev Singh, so through Motilal Pandit, and so from there it started a couple of decades back. So, so though I have a feel for Advaita, Kashmir Saivism was new when I started it a couple of decades ago. And my introduction, still I am introducing to these knowledge bases. It's only predominantly through the textual work, so through books. The books rule so through various authors, including J.J. Singh, and I think I was getting introduced to Abhinav Gupta, Shemaraja, the entire acharyas of the Kashmir Saivism. But I always wanted a personal guru or a personal acharya to live it, and that is where, thanks to Lord Shiva. Shiva in Tamil, in Tirumular says, Andesigam. The best definition of Shiva is love. Andu means love. So, his infinite compassion made break these barriers of space and time, and I am now taking my baby steps in Trika schools, and to do that I owe a lot to two major personal acharyas whom I am in touch in my God's grace. One is Motilal Pandit. So again, I was introduced through his books, and I don't know, some magic happened or something like that. I came to know that he is planning to start a very close-knit session where he will teach dedicated students on the various doctrines of Kashmir Saivism, taking it on a textual basis. So that is an entry gate for me to Motilal Pandit's greatness is spread of knowledge, and beyond that is grace. So as some of us here, as part of the loud thinking, we all agree that as an acharya, he used to take very sincere efforts in spite of sometimes his failing health, to outreach and spread the message of Kashmir Saivism. And he was more sincere than students like me, and for various reasons I could not I had to miss multiple classes because of other personal preoccupations and other things. But every time after the class, he would reach out to us and he will bless us, calling names and identifying each student. So though we are separate by distance and it is only through internet we are connected, yet he maintained a personal touch. I have never met him personally. I have never been to him, but I see a personal connect with him. So he was always reachable. So in that way, I can only say that Guru is nothing but God. So Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat, Parabrahmam, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So it is through Guru the knowledge comes. So and it is fortunate that we have got one of the best Gurus. We might have lost his physical body, but I think he continues to guide us through, just as he was guiding me through his books. His wisdom and his spirit is all, it's now omniscient, I would say. So he is always with us. So I want to start with saying that again from Tirumandiram, from it says that Ande Sivam. So, and talk about the Guru, where Manika Vasagar says, Telivu Guru in Tirumeni and Telivu Guru in Tiruvin Chetal, Telivu Guru in Tiruvarthai Ketal, Telivu Guru in Tirunamam Singitale. So it means that it is Guru's holy form, name, and his thought that is guiding us. So, with that, I also offer my ignorance as an offering, as an humble offering to the holy feet of the Guruji. Jnanathal Thuluvar Unai Jnanigal, Jnanathal Thuluvar Unai Jnanalen, Jnanathal Thuluvar Thulugandu, Jnanathal Unai Jnanum Thuluvane. What it means is that some are blessed with enlightenment. There are wise men who are enlightened gurus. So, who worship God or who contemplate on God. But I am not a jnani. I am not a jnani. So I am not enlightenment. So I don't even don't even deserve to contemplate on God. But looking at these jnanis contemplating on God, I try to contemplate on God. This is a golden verse by Appar in his Devaram, which is one of the which is from South Indian Bhakti literature. So with this, I pay my homage to Acharya ji. I should also offer my homage on this occasion to Taneshwar, who is also present here. So he has been another very important source of knowledge on Litrika, Advaita, and the entire spirituality as such as a guru is simplicity, is reachability. I think it is amazing. So on the one side is scholarship, on the other side is Pandita, is spiritual heritage and is training. But beyond that is humility. I think that differentiates other gurus from these two gurus. I would say with my humble pronouns. So and desire to be as part of this and I should also give my offerings to my co-students. So the sincerity and passion I'm always awe and inspire. They are a big inspiration. So humble pronouns to all my co-students, learners, my seniors. So with this, I just would like to start my prayers. I don't want to take much time, but I just wanted to talk about two sources of texts where I was introduced by Acharya Motilal Pandit. So I started with this training on Shiva Sutras, which I understand is it is the summit of the Hindu because it is considered to be a direct avatarana of Shiva. So it is also considered to be like a Sufi, like the so I was fortunate to be participating in those sessions. So and similarly followed by Spandakarika. So these are the two classes, the closer circle classes, the weekly classes which Ravi and discussed about. What I participated and I have been learning through Motilal ji. So I offer my Guru Vandanam and then Shivapasana contemplating on Shiva, leveraging the golden words of the Bhashyakaras and Acharyas of these texts. With this, so as I said, these are the major sources of texts I was attending as part of these sessions. So one is the Shiva Sutra, so which is Vasubhutta ji Vasugupta Acharya is considered to be the person who got the revelation directly through Shiva, or there are differences of opinion among scholars or panditas on that. But either way, it is a divine calling through which Vasugupta recorded the Shiva Sutras, the aphorisms of Shiva. So there is a huge commentorial corpus on Shiva Sutra. Among that, the three main sources which Panditji helped us go through along the Shiva Sutra and his commentaries is Shiva Sutra Vimarshini of Shemaraja, who is considered to be one of the disciples of Acharya Abhinavagupta. So there's a very huge lineage. I think the enlightened speakers here talked about his lineage. So Shemaraja, Shiva Sutra Vimarshini is one of the major windows expanding the sutras, which are very cryptic by their nature, because sutras need to be cryptic. So the Vimarshini of Shemaraja helps us understand the mind of Vasugupta through Shiva Sutra, and through that the Paramashiva's Agnya of what he wanted to convey as Shiva Sutra. So that aspect is, again, continues to be part of my learning. And then there is Shiva Sutra Vartika of Bhaskara Acharya, and which is another parallel text, and which also provides an independent commentorial analysis on the Shiva Sutras. And there is one more text which I understand is the Shiva Sutra Vritti, which some say it is an anonymous authorship, some attribute it to Shemaraja. But these are the three main commentorial texts available on Shiva Sutra. And the Shiva Sutra Vimarshini, there is one more commentary to the commentary, so which is a Shiva Sutra Vartikam by Varadaraja Acharya. So I think that this is I'm not sure if I have missed some other commentorial texts or literature, but I think the more we have, it gives us more holistic analysis. Because I mean, from a language point of view, I am taking my baby steps in Sanskrit, and also any of my languages. So I always feel that the originals are the closest to the authors and the divinity, but there could always be a knowledge gap where the originals cannot outreach because of the limitations of the person who do not understand that language. But thanks today, there are ways through which the acharyas will translate. But I also strongly feel jnana is jnana. So jnana will always outreach you through any means. So knowledge, while language is indispensable for getting the original details, but translate where we don't have that expertise of scholarship, translations do help, and the grace of God will always support and supplement and complement these things. So this is the thing. And the second thing I wanted to talk about is the Spandaka Karika, which is the second set of sessions that he talked about, and this also has a huge commentorial richness corpus. So Shemaraja itself has written on the first sutra, on the invocation verse alone, a very detailed text, and he also has created Spanda Nirnaya. And then there are other texts by Kallava Bhattacharya. Sometimes the Spandakarika's authorship is debated, whether it is Bhattacharya or it is Vasugupta Acharya. So there were two different schools of thought of that. And I see synergies between these two texts which Acharya Motilal introduced to us. So Shiva Sutrani, though technically it means a divine aphorism, but Sutra also means a vibration because it means a thread. So, and Shiva means auspicious. So here it means an auspicious vibration which is spreading, and which is also the spanda or the spandana. So the spandana is again a vibration. So even these two texts are interrelated, and I also understand that while Shiva Sutra talks about the Shiva Prakasha aspect, and the Spandakarika refers to the Vimarsha aspect of Shivam. So these two are two sides of the same coin. So they form a polarity, and that's probably why our Panditji started with these texts. So with this, I would like to once again thank everybody, all Acharya, and Om Namah Shivaya. Yeah.
Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you so much, Shankarji. I think it was maybe last week, Abhishekji and I were talking about the humility of Guruji, and he would sometimes in class say these things like, oh, for us Pashus, or for us Sakala, like, you aren't a Pashu, but you're just, including yourself in it to make us feel that you're with us. But, we know who you are, you're not some Pashu like we are. So your humility was something that yes, that is one of the great characteristics, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's something that we haven't talked about yet, is despite all his accomplishments, all the books, all the scholarship, he was so humble. I'd like to introduce Sumitra Waliaji to offer some words and reflections on Guruji. Please, Sumitra. You just go ahead and mute and please share. Please share.
Yeah. So, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes.
So, before I say, on this occasion today, Shivratri, to say something about Guru is to describe Guru is to describe Shiva himself. As in Guru Gita we say, Namami Sadguru Shantam Prataksham Shivarupena. So when I was fortunate enough to meet Guruji on a couple of occasions, and we discussed intricacies of Trikha, and apart from the weekly classes, weekly Sangha we had, I met him, and two primary texts all of us studied under him were Shiva Sutra and Spandakarika. Apart from that, we used to occasionally discuss Paratrishika Vivaran and we used to discuss Matrika and Malini. So when I met him, he instructed me to chant Shiva Mahiman Stotra daily, every day, after my puja. So I would start this presentation with the first verse from Shiva Mahiman Stotra before I move forward. So, yes, that, Mahimnah Parante Param Vidusho Yadya Sadrushi Stutir Brahmadinam Pitadav Sannastvai Girah Athavachah Sarva Swamati Parinamavadi Grunan Mama Pesha Stotre Haranirapavadah Parikara. So if we translate it, that it is impossible even for Brahma to describe, to delineate who is Param Shiva. So, but still, so if even Brahma cannot describe Param Shiva, then who are we, right? But still everybody, as per their own wisdom, as per their own capabilities, they try to describe. They try to, say whatever they can say. So, and therefore, our description, our definition, our presentation should be free from any doshas. It should not be a pariva. So, then the first sutra, all of us, that is 1.1 sutra first of Shiv Sutras, Chaitanya Matma. That is, consciousness is Atma, is the self. And that is Vyapta Charachar. That is everywhere. But then still, why are we confined to transmigration, to repeated births and deaths? That takes us to the second sutra, that is Jnanam Bandha. Jnana, that is vitiated, relative, conditioned knowledge. Right? And that conditioned knowledge it arises out of anavma. When the jivas, they assume their difference from Param Shiv, and that again is the Leela, the Swatantra of Param Shiv, that he puts on a wheel upon himself. And this is Anavmal, and this Anavmal leads to Mayamal. And Mayamal leads to further to Karmic Mal. And that is the reason for the repeated births and deaths. And this is the way Gurudev taught us. And then what happens? Yoni Vargaha Kala Sharir. This yoni, this is what leads to Mayamal and Karma. So, and Lord Shiva, Param Shiv, does this with the Swatantra Shakti and with the help of Mahamaya. And that Mahamaya, it leads an Ashrit Shiv to the Maya Pramata. That is the lowest among all Pramatas. And then Vigyan Dharav says, to reach Shiva, Shiva is not the way, Shakti is the way. Shakti is the path. And similarly, we say Jnanam Adhisthana Matrika. That Matrikas, the Shaktis, Matrika Shaktis, they are the cause of this conditioned knowledge. They give rise to this world, this cosmos of names and forms. So, as the Gyan Bhairav says, Shakti is the pathways. So, Shakti in the form of both Matrika and Malini, which जिसके बारे में whatever my feeble wisdom allows me to describe, I will try to describe. So, there is, if we talk about Shaktis of Matrika, the Varnakshars of Matrika, they are divided into many categories. So sometimes there are 3, sometimes there are 8 or 9, or we call them, if we divided among consonants and vowels. So there are 3 Shaktis, Ghor, Ghortari and Aghor. So the Ghor Shaktis, they provide worldly pleasures to the Jiva and they put obstacles in spiritual evolution, the spiritual path of the Jiva. The Ghortari Shaktis, they delude the Jiva more and more into worldliness. And it is the Aghori Shaktis which inspire the Jiva towards evolution, towards liberation, towards spirituality. So, then the third part, 19th Sutra says, Ka Vargadishu Mahashvaradya Pashu Matra. That Maheshwari Shakti is like Maheshwari. We don't have time and inclination to describe all the Vargas, Ka Varg, Ta Varg, Ka Varg, A Varg. So all these Shaktis, they like Maheshwari, they impel the Jiva towards the worldliness, towards transmigration towards the birth and death. And Gurudev used to, it was one of the favorite shlokas of Gurudev, Punarapi Jaranam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani Jatare Shaina, E Sansare, Bahudustare, Kripaya Pare, Pahi Murare. So how to go about it? So it is only through the grace of Gurudev. Says, Tasmad Guru Prasannat, when the Guru is pleased with us, that he bestows upon us Matrika Chakra Sambodha, the knowledge of the exact, real knowledge of Matrika. So then when this happens, so what happens after this, when we have the knowledge, exact, real, how it ought to be known, then what happens? Sharira Havi. That this body, this physical body, it becomes a Havi, oblation in the fire of consciousness. And the result is Jnanam Anna. Jnanam Anna. That is this conditioned, vitiated, relative knowledge, it becomes, the Jiva devours it. And what all this is, it happens through Guru. So, Guru Rupaya. Guru is the Upaya. Iti Shivam.
Thank you so much, Sumatraji. You so beautifully condensed what Guruji has explained over so many weeks and months in a very beautiful teaching. The final student who will be speaking is Timothy G. Timothy G, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please go ahead and unmute and share your reflections.
Yes, here we are. Thank you so much, Abhijit. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. As much as I knew Guruji, I knew he loved very much the texts. So when I was asked by my brother Abhishek to talk a little bit today, I took to the text because I want this to be commemoration of Guruji the way he would have loved. So I was busy with the last text that I spoke with him about, which is the Vartika by Bhaskara. And somewhere in the Mangala Shlokas, in the commentary, he starts to write this, in the commentary on the Mangala Shloka, he asks this question, Kim tarhi tat apasarana karanam, what then is the cause of the removal of impurities? Ishwaranugrahayeva, it is solely the grace of the Lord. Tatacha Shaktipata Vasha Devi Niyate Satgurum Prati, by the power of descent of this grace, one is led toward the true Guru. Then he goes on to say, Iti Tatra Anugrahasati Swaswarupa Sputi Bhavishyati. When that grace occurs, one's own nature becomes manifest. This is the foundation of everything that Guruji offered us. In every teaching, all the words he spoke, even in the silence, it was so full of his grace. And he showed us that we can do so much effort, we can do so much intellectual study and even ritual, but only being under his gaze, by being seen with his loving gaze and being in his presence, recognition arose naturally. When Ravi was doing the invocation, we heard the first verse, Agada Samshayambodhi Samutkaranatarini. I love this verse so much. I pay homage to the wonderful speech of Guru, the boat for crossing the unfathomable ocean of doubt. Vande Vichitra Tapadam Chittam Tam Guru Bharati. Endowed with words of manifold, subtle and wondrous meanings, beautifully arranged. Through Guruji, we were shown this boat in action. It is his words, his guidance, and his living example that ferry us across the turbulence of our own minds. Then there is even much commentary on this, but it's beautifully said. Tamasamanyam Bhagavatim Gurum Shai Mukham Yochate Iti Shivadama Prapti Hetupat Acharya Rupam. The Supreme Goddess in her non-dual essence, is called Guru. She takes the form of the teacher. She is the very cause of attaining Shiva Sabodh, Shiva Dhamma Prapti Hetu. Here, Guruji embodied Shakti for us in life. He was not only teaching ideas, but he was the living cause of our liberation. Just when we see him, through him we saw how Shakti descends, manifests, and guides the bound individual toward freedom. Swapushi sputtabhasini saswate stitikrite natkimapi uppayuryate. Nothing at all is required to remain firmly established. This is from Acharya Motilal, shining and eternal in one's own form. Mama bhava charanabja raja suchahi. May such firm conviction arise in me, purified by the dust of your lotus feet. This is what I would sometimes say to Guruji when I was on a phone call with him, because this is what he did for us. He did not ask us to search somewhere, you have to find it in the text or you have to find it out there, but he pointed to our own nature. He was trying to show you, you are Shiva. He said it many times, and purified by his grace, he purified that and he made it inevitable. If you really looked at him, you would get this recognition, because he would recognize you too and he see you. Like Shankar said also, in the end, he would teach the text and then he would say, Ravi, I see you are there. Sumita, you are late. We would always have a good laugh for this. Then we see Utpaladeva, he says also, Trimalakshalino Granta Shanti Tatpargatata. There are scriptures that cleanse the three impurities. Yogina Pandita Sastras Tat Bhaktayo Tatata. And there are yoginis and scholars who have mastered them, but truly your devotees are self-possessed and established in essence. Through Guruji, we understood that books and theory alone are not enough. It is devotion and being under his guidance and fully absorbing his teaching that actually established the mind and consciousness. Ano pa sajalam apohatiti. The Supreme Lord removes the net of bonds from the individual soul. Vijnana kala pralaya kala sakalatena tripurasya trirupasya. This is what earlier we talked about, all this bondage, and these are the three vijnana kala pralaya kala sakala. They are the three type of soul that have these limits, this bondage of anavamala, mayamala, and karmamala. But this shows that Guruji always used to teach, when we say Chaitanya Mahatma, and there is a bondage, these bondages are only existing as much as they are being seen by consciousness. So it is consciousness only that obscures itself, and then the removal of them can only be by consciousness itself too. So consciousness can only be known by consciousness. This is what Guruji was showing. This is why this verse says that only by the Supreme Lord removes the nets of bonds. It is to say only Chaitanya can know Chaitanya itself. Vimarsya is Prakasha. Guruji would often ask, what is the nature of light? It makes things seen. So when we see this way, there we see the absolute identity of Prakasha and Vimarsya. If it is consciousness that can only know consciousness, Vimarsya is what Prakasha is. Guruji showed us directly that it is not our effort alone, but the grace that he embodies that cuts through the nuts of limitation, karma, and ignorance. Tadami chinnane stitva satrimshat tattva karmadi kayava chitta chestadhyay acharya tvam sadavibho. Resting in the brilliance of your consciousness through the 36 tattvas and their activities, may I ever worship you through body, speech, and mind, O Lord. This is Guruji's teaching. Every action, thought, and word became sacred when performed under his guidance through his grace. Atacha gurum pasyanti adikrodikarat mahatim bharatim parambhakam tata guru racharya sambandinim upadistrim giram chitram lokuttara chamatkara rupa. I pay homage to the great supreme speech Bharati, which assumes the form of Guru, and to the wondrous speech of the Guru as teacher, endowed with chamatkara, the aesthetic rapture that is beyond this world. Through him, words and meanings have merged. He would often say, Shabdara he, the meaning and the word are one. Doubt dissolves and recognition just arose when you came with an open heart and open mind to see him. He would show you recognition. It came from both sides. He recognized you, and you would have to, he would tell me on the phone, he said, Timothy said to me, he will prescribe no ritual, no nothing to do, just surrender. He would almost shout it, just surrender. This was his living presence to me. Karmana manasa vacha tato nanya gati mama. By action, by mind, or by speech, I have no other refuge than you. Mantrahinam kriyahinam dravyahinam chayat kritam. Whatever has been done without mantra, homa, or archana, please complete it, O Maheshwara. This was His grace. All our efforts, however imperfect, were guided and completed by His presence and teaching. I have a little few more words. Atacha sarvavastasu spurat virupatva abhivadanti udyantrita prayatnana abhivayade. Because she shines in all states, I reverently salute and bring face to face through effort that expressive goddess grounded in contemplation of her own essential nature. Through Guruji, we cross the oceans of doubt. Through His grace, we dissolve impurities, and through His teaching, we abide in recognition. Through His presence, we experience the pulsation of consciousness itself. So this is why we have gathered today to honor the living grace, the speech and teaching and presence of our Guru. Every recognition we have, every moment of understanding is His gift, fully alive within us. So I pray we may not only remember Him, but to continue to live His teachings, to abide in His grace, and to follow this path that He illuminated, always anchored in His presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Timothy Ji. Abhishek Ji, I wonder if you'll, now that our formal session is towards the end, I wonder if you'll just give us a few words of parting before we close with the Shanti Mantra.
Jai Gurudev. First of all, thank you very much to Acharya Timosina and Dr. Jeffrey. And thank you, family, Guru Mata, to blessing us, Amit Ji, Sakshi Ji, blessing us, and all the seekers, all because we are live, so a lot of people are watching, and they may watch after this will be available online. To all the seekers, all the students, I thank you, everyone. This Smriti, this is the first International Memorial Conference in the memory, in the honor of Gurudev, and that will continue. So next year, next Shivratri, we will again repeat this one. And as Acharya Timosina said, only idea cannot sustain, institution can sustain the idea. So in the background, we will do something, so the teachings, so the the learnings of Gurudev will continue. And with this thought, we are just closing this conference with Ravi-ji, if you recite the Shanti Mantra for the Kula. Thank you. Jai Gurudev. Har Har Mahadev.
Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Jai Gurudev. It's a so delightful moment. I don't want to press this end button. I just want this to continue, but I have to. This is a very painful part for me today. Once again, thank you very much. I'm closing. Jai Gurudev. Thank you.